The Green Sheet is a financial publication of the MWRA Advisory Board. The February 2015 installment introduces the authority's proposed FY16 rate assessment increases for wholesale water and sewer services. First, we'll look at how rates are established. The authority puts together their FY16 budget outlining the annual cost of operating the system, including debt service repayments. They also outline the FY16 revenues that will not come from community rate assessments, also referred to as non-rate revenue. Total expenditures less total non-rate revenue is the final number that needs to be raised through community rate assessments, and this is called the rate revenue requirement. One final step in the process is the Advisory Board's statutory review of the authority's budget and capital plan. The review takes place between mid-February and the end of May. This video specifically highlights the projected rate assessment increases. Next month, the Green Sheet will go in depth on the proposed FY16 budget once the Board of Directors votes to transmit it to the Advisory Board for review. The vote to transmit was held up this year because of snow. From a big picture perspective, the rate revenue requirement is driven mainly by capital financing or debt service, which makes up over 60% of the authority's annual expenditures. The authority has combated these rising costs in a few ways discussed later in the video. Non-rate revenue can also impact the rate revenue requirement, but these funding sources often fluctuate. On the water side, entrance fees and emergency water revenue are non-rate revenue sources worth watching, as the MWRA has water to sell, and selling water on an emergency or permanent basis can lower future rate assessments of existing MWRA water communities. On the sewer side, debt service assistance from the Commonwealth was finally making a comeback before Governor Patrick cut it in FY15 due to the state's budget crisis. FY15 debt service assistance could have helped in FY16 in accordance with the Advisory Board's Pay It Forward recommendation, which called for any DSA to be applied directly to the following fiscal year to lower rates. To sum up, community rate assessments will always fund the majority of the MWRA's operations, but attempting to increase non-rate revenue will continue to be a goal of the Advisory Board each year. Let's move now to community rate assessments with projections of future rate revenue requirements. First, looking at the utility split between water in blue and sewer in yellow. Looking at the overall increase across both sewer and water utilities, the MWRA's proposed FY16 rate revenue requirement is $677 million, a 4.1% increase from FY15. Looking at each utility, the authority's proposed rate revenue requirement on the sewer side is $450.6 million, a 2.4% increase from FY15 to 16. On the water side, the proposed rate revenue requirement is $226.4 million, a 7.7% increase from the previous fiscal year. Obviously, proposed means just that. These are not the final rate assessment numbers, and the Advisory Board will fully utilize its annual budget review process to ensure that the authority reaches our recommendation of 4 no more, meaning no more total rate assessment increases over 4%. Looking now at the rate revenue requirement only as a total of water and sewer, the 3 years in blue represent actual rate assessment increases, in red is FY16's proposed rate increase, and in green are 4 years of projections. While your eye is drawn to FY20, let's focus first on FY17. At this time 2 years ago, the multi-year projection showed an 8.5% increase for FY17 and became a focus of the Advisory Board's recommendations. You may remember the bullseye on 17. By this time last year, that increase was projected at 6%, and now that rate revenue requirement is expected to increase by 3.9% from FY16 to 17. This was not by accident. Through good fiscal management, the authority has targeted FY17 with defeasance transactions aimed at the most difficult years for debt service payments, and the strategy has worked. So while it may be disheartening to see another challenge ahead in FY20, it certainly seems less insurmountable now that the playbook has been written and used successfully by the authority in addressing FY17. With this in mind, let's look big picture to the light at the end of the tunnel. First, where we've come from, the FY10 to FY15 average annual rate assessment increase for water and sewer combined was 3.1%. Currently, the authority is proposing a 4.1% rate assessment increase for FY16, though this will likely change after the Advisory Board's comments and recommendations in May. Looking ahead, the projected rate assessment increases from FY17 to 24 averages out to 2.6% per year. As we approach FY16, the big picture outlook is becoming much clearer. While the Advisory Board has trumpeted the phrase sustainable and predictable in regards to rate increases, the thinking has always been how to get to the end of the tunnel in a way that was the least abrasive to communities and ratepayers. The continued efforts of the authority to address future fiscal challenges is appreciated, and the new outlook on FY17 proves the effectiveness of their current fiscal policies. One final item to address in this rate revenue discussion is the FY16 preliminary community assessments. This spreadsheet was recently sent out to communities. The spreadsheet is based on usage of water and/or sewer services that a community is being charged by the MWRA. It is also based on the preliminary rate assessment increase just discussed at length. If a community's water or sewer usage has increased or decreased from the prior year, their assessment change from FY15 to 16 will obviously not match the 4.1% proposed increase that was just detailed. This sheet is broken down by whether a community is a full or partial user of the system for water and/or sewer services. This sheet was provided as a guideline for communities who need to plan their own FY16 budgets, but it will change after the Advisory Board's review and before the MWRA's proposed FY16 budget is approved in June. For more information, contact us directly or visit our website at www.mwraadvisoryboard.com.